The perceived has always been into existence in its absolute entirety. But we as human beings have created obstructions of many different kinds according to our facets of understanding. The one whom we are trying to perceive has always been perceived as one unified force which governs all cosmos. And we all know that under that one umbrella, there are just many facets of reality under the manifestation of the same divine nature from which everything there is. So what is important here is to understand is the depth of your experience creates the profoundness of your life. How profound your life is actually depends on the in-depth experience that you are gaining from whatever you are going through. So what are you going through at this point in time? Doesn't matter how traumatic, how confusing, how complicated and complex or intricate or intriguing it could be, but the better vision of yourself which you hold within creates your reality. And the reality that you want to create has to be in alignment with the one whom you want to perceive. But the one who is perceived is so dignified, so celebrated, sits on a very elongated stage where you cannot reach. That's the problem. So what happens is the disposition of ours is interposed with your thoughts. This is what you need to understand. Your thoughts are molded according to specific circumstances and situations. That's why we don't have a unique problem, but we feel very vulnerable to a unique problem. That's why our varied problems with of different color and texture could be a matter of sail through for many people. But for us, it is rather too overwhelming. So to come out from our own cocoon of comfort, each time we step out of our comfort zone, there occurs a blessing. There occurs a blessing of the one whom you consider as someone worthy of being perceived. So each time you take a step ahead, you are invoking that blessing into your life by taking a step ahead because you are out of your comfort zone. That's exactly how the carving out of a stone is. The stone has been dumped, but if the same stone is picked and chiseled and made an idol out of it, could be positioned at the place of worship. Isn't it the truth? So the chiseling and the carving out of your own understanding is the work of your thought process. How your thought process is creating your destiny is a matter of whose concern. But are you able to see through your thoughts? Are you? None of us are able to see through it. But a lot of emphasis has been put on the very thought and the very thought of it itself. So the word thought has been so emphatically used in so many ways today that we don't want to think about the thought. We think, oh, let it flow. I think we shall actually allow it to flow as it is. But that is not the main concern. The main concern is we cannot replace one darkness with another darkness. We cannot replace any problem with the same identical problem which has already been into existence. So anything that has been into existence and has been traumatic and has been a stumbling block towards your higher dimension of life cannot be replaced with the same vibrational frequency, can it? Absolutely not. So how you need to replace is not by thinking positively. because thinking positively doesn't help. It may pacify matters, but it cannot resolve matters. We need to resolve matters. And resolve is to declutter the clutter that we have created. So the clutter needs to declutter by higher reverberations. And that higher reverberation occurs when we are attuned to subtle energies around us. So one that is perceived is already manifested in so many forms. In fact, the very existence of it does not lie in manifestation itself, because we have not seen it. We never have seen it, but we believe it because it has been put into us. It has been put into our conditioning to know and to believe, to have form, to have a structure from the society, from the world, as the matter of fact. And we have believed also as a matter of fact and as reality. The real significance is each time you step out of your comfort zone, each time you make an effort, there already lies a stream of blessing. So the more you try, the more you make an effort in order to push yourself further, go extra mile to create a grand and better version of yourself, you are being identical with the one whom you are perceiving. So the only way, and the only way you can worship the one who is perceived as the most revered, is becoming an identical form of himself or herself only. Just by worshipping and having that perceived figure very far off from you, since you cannot reach him or her, cannot attribute the qualities of him or her, will not resolve the problem, will only make you submissive to those powers, to these grand preconceived notion of worship. So the chiseling of a stone could create an ideal whom we go and take a bow before, but we don't believe in chiseling of our thoughts, which can make us grander. Isn't it a catastrophe? When a stone could be worth praising and being worshipped, of course, as we chisel our thoughts and carve out the best version of ourselves, which could align to our grandest vision of life, we could be grander than life itself, isn't it? So as the man perceives, as he believes, as he becomes, isn't it, my dear friends? So why don't we chisel our thoughts? Why don't we make our thoughts as per the identical version of the one whom we perceive as the one? So beyond all these words lies the existence of ours, and that existence is totally invisible. Invisible to the senses that we have been holding on to, because these senses are illusionary, and these perceptions are created based on the senses, and what we perceive we become, because we believe in the same thing. And the one that is of higher vibration is totally denied and negated and subjugated, because our intellectual capacity takes over as we are the most intellectual. So the truth is always subjugated because of the overwhelming nature of our intellect. Or with it comes an ego to prove a man as the most superior than any species on this planet. But mostly it has to do with the elements, the elements that we are part of. The more subtle our energies are, the more aptly equipped we are to be able to communicate with elements around us. It is so empowering, my dear friends. It is so empowering. The moment you start to communicate with the elements around you, there is a knowing that occurs. This is exactly what you need to do. This is exactly how all the men of the greatest characteristics have operated to become one with all elements around. That's how they have turned the life around. That's how all the tragedy has been turned into triumph. All the most fierce battle have been won effortlessly through the transmutation of the elements that consume our life. Because we have not consumed them, they have consumed us. That's the tragedy of being a human. We think we are intellectual, but we feel totally incapsulated, innovated, weakened by the forces which we cannot see. Isn't it that reality, my dear friends? Tsunami occurs. Who can stop tsunami? Tell me. Who has been able to stop any natural calamity? Anyone in the world? Is it possible? If the nature takes its fierce form and hell bent on destroying humanity and us? Absolutely no way. We will be exhausted by our capacity of understanding because we do not know the element what is there dissolves into us only. The reason why we feel segregated because we have this identical intellectual capacity which shouts its heads off but does rather too little. So the one who has been perceived as the Almighty, or the one who has been idealized as the worth of worshipping, want you to be a grander version as who they are. It all depends on how you take it. We can find escape by saying that these are the gods, or we can chisel our own carving, because the carve itself has a design. It has got the most beautiful, immaculate, meticulous design that all of us are, that you are. But it does require a bit of carving, even more carving, which happens by becoming a better version of yourself. That's when you are able to justify the blessing that has been bestowed upon you. There is a blessing that has been conferred upon you, but that only occurs to happen to you once you start chiseling yourself, becoming that final version of yourself. That's when the perceived one blessing comes unfolded, unfettered, unmanacled, in abundance in your life. Sadhguru Sadafal Devji Maharaj describes in his Svar Ved, Malaya Giri ke vas se hove vas suva doha se kanchan bane parasa parasa tapas कीट भृंग के स्वाति से भृंग रूप बन जा छूटा पूर्व स्वभाव सब उड़त भृंग गति पास।